Straw Hut Media.
Wake up! It's time to wake up and listen to Release Date Rewind, a podcast that celebrates milestone movie anniversaries, and this episode features a major milestone in the horror genre. If you thought we were done talking about scary stuff because Halloween was a few weeks ago, well, you're wrong. I'm your host, Mark J. Parker, a film lover and filmmaker, and thank you for listening to this show on the Straw Hut Media Network, wherever you get your pods, or watching on YouTube. 1984 was a big year for memorable movies, and this movie is one of the most memorable ever. Even if you haven't seen this, you've heard about it and you've seen some of the visuals. We are celebrating the 40th anniversary of Wes Craven's groundbreaking film, A Nightmare on Elm Street, a scrappy, low-budget film with lots of creativity and lots of money issues behind the scenes during production. But this film launched a new, iconic villain, Freddy Krueger, and his disturbing weapon, and it gave us a fierce leading lady who is determined and tough as nails, wink wink. And, oh my god, that creepy Charles Bernstein score, I mean, everything is so good. This movie is a special one, so if you want to watch or rewatch, it's currently streaming with ads on Pluto TV, or you could borrow it from your library or find it online. Now heads up everybody, we will talk a bit about the overall franchise, so some sequel spoilers might pop up, especially later on when we rank them at the end of the show, so stay tuned for that. Alright kids, snuggle in and stay awake, because I'm your boyfriend now, and it's time to rewind. All right, everybody, I am so excited to talk about this classic horror movie, one of the best ever. And I'm so excited to talk about it with not one, but two great guests that have been on the show before. I have two guests. See, look, I just made a little connection there. I have Clark and Dave, Clark Felix and Dave Gonzalez. Welcome back, my boys. How's it going?
Howdy.
Hey. Thanks for having me again.
Oh my God, you are so welcome. So Dave was on the show. When was the last time? Super Mario. We talked about Super Mario.
Oh my God, that was it. Yeah.
Right.
That was a good episode. I remember that.
Oh, you heard it. Thank you, Clark.
Yeah.
And Clark, you of course were last on with Jawbreaker, which was a great chat. Finally, you were on. So you guys have been on the show before. You know the drill. But before we get into our love of Nightmare on Elm Street, I want to hear, since spooky season's sort of over, although I think November's still spooky. How was Halloween? What'd you guys do? Clark, what'd you do on Halloween? Anything fun?
I'm actually really excited because I was initially supposed to work and I work nights. So at 6 p.m. to 6 in the morning, would have missed the entire thing. But my coworker stepped up, let me have it off. So we did, we always host, had our family come over, take the kids out trick-or-treating. Nice. Did the best I could with the last minute costumes, just put some Winks and the Halo on.
Is that what you wore? What were you, like an angel?
Just a last minute angel.
Last minute angel. That's a great costume. I love that. So did you walk around your neighborhood, or do you go to like another neighborhood, like where all the good candy is, or what do you do?
No, our neighborhood's cool, and then we're usually the house to go to because I let kids take like a whole handful of candy.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's
gotta
great.
treat them right.
Love that. Yeah, that's so sweet. And what about you, Dave? Did you guys go trick-or-treating too with the fam?
Yeah, we did. So it's a little bit different now with a kid. So this is the first year she actually, she's able to walk around. Last year we took her to American Dream, and this year we decided to do the same thing because they had like a little party.
Dream?
That big. Oh, because you're not from Jersey. So
I am, but not anymore. Yeah,
it's essentially the second biggest mall in the entire United States. It's owned by the same. I believe it's owned by the same company that has the Mall of America in Minnesota.
Oh, interesting. And
it's
what town is that in?
Rutherford. It's that you probably were still in Jersey. It's that construction that they started by the.
Oh my God! Yeah, I remember when living in New York, that thing was being built for like
20 years.
Our whole lives. Yeah.
Wow. So it's a massive mall. So we took her there. We all dressed up as Beetlejuice. So Beetlejuice. I thought it was a catchy little fun thing to do. We had fun makeup on, but as soon as Harley came downstairs, it was a wrap. We had to take our makeup. She was screaming, and I'm like, oh man. So we took like one picture, and then we went trick or treating. But was able to continue my tradition that I have done for the last, like, I don't know, at this point, like 30 years, is I watch Halloween 1 and Halloween 2 on Halloween night.
Oh, nice.
And I always do on October 30th, I watch Halloween 3. So I do Halloween 3 October 30th, and then Halloween and Halloween 2 October 31st. I always like to have that as a tradition. And once Harley's watching horror with me, I will continue that tradition with her. 5 is whatever, but I do like 4 a lot.
We talked about 4 on your show, I remember last year. That was fun.
Yeah. So 4 I like a lot. H2O, you know, I like it. It's just, you know, it's Kevin Williamson. I like it a lot more when I watched it this year, because I do watch it every year during the season. I got over the Kevin Williamson ghostwriting of it all, because it does feel a lot like Scream.
It's totally the same family, which is why I love it.
And then Resurrection is probably my most hated movie of all time. So like it's I love the franchise so much, even though like I have a complicated relationship with it.
Resurrection, we just sort of, it's just a terrible bad dream or something, right? But
you know, I can have fun with it, because I went to a kind of I guess they would say a more ghetto high school, and we were really excited about Buster Rhymes.
Yeah. We are here not to talk about Halloween. That was just a little fun tangent, but Freddie, please don't get mad. We still love you. We're going to focus on you now. Now, boys, real quick, I want to ask you, because Clark, you know, if Dave and Clark, you don't know each other. You're meeting here on this show, which is always so fun. Dave, you run the Cinematic Reel. You're a podcaster. You love 80s horror. I know you've had Chop Talk. You've also been on the show talking to me about Poltergeist. So this is so up your alley. Clark, you are a horror graphic designer, creative, amazing. I love your art. And you have written an amazing, really fun Nightmare on Elm Street like fan fiction script feature film that I love. Which awesome. Do you want to tell everyone real quick what you're working on, or should we keep that quiet because you're doing some really cool art related to that story? Do you want to
No, I don't mind. Yeah.
Tell us.
Basically, I think it was like 2018. I wrote a script to continue the Elm Street franchise from 1 to 6. And then it would be present day. So basically, I hate when people take away movies when they try to like say, oh, this part didn't exist. I'm like, no, I want them all to exist. You made the bed. You're going to lie in it. So I am working on a comic series of that now. It's going to take me probably like an entire year because I don't have much time to work on it.
Right.
But I will release probably like every month and a half what I get done. Cool. And I'm excited about it. I think it's a fun story. I get to bring back some cool people. Get to, I don't know, like basically if they made it, I had Robert Englund in mind for like the first movie, and then like his voiceover for the second, and then a new person for the third that kind of takes over, but has been included in all, so you are kind of used to it.
Interesting. That's great. And your art is so great. And you've posted some amazing Nightmare art. So yeah, everybody be on the lookout on Clark's Insta. I'll tag you and, you know, put it in the show notes and everything to look out for that. And then now, Dave, I'm going to throw it over to you for a second. When did you first see A Nightmare on Elm Street? Do you remember? Do you have any memories like your first viewing at home?
That's a good question. Actually, I do remember. So the first time was in 1999. So I was about 12 years old, and Kmart had re-released the Nightmare on Elm Street on VHS. Okay. And they had released them in this cool, like, you have to buy them individually, and it formed like Freddy's, like whole body and arms.
Oh,
and
wow.
That's before, and I think that was before that they like studios would actually release the complete boxes together. So it was like a fun adventure trying to find them together.
Nice.
And that actually was the first time I saw it, and I kind of just ran through the entire franchise. I've loved it since the first time I saw it back then. It's my outside of Halloween, Psycho, and The Shining, it's my 4th favorite horror movie of all time. It's a very interesting entry to Wes Craven, because when I went backwards on Wes Craven, I'm like, whoa.
I agree. I have that same journey.
I particularly like a lot of what he does, but some of the earlier stuff, I'm like, probably never messing with like Last House on the Left like ever again. But I think this movie is so, there's such a griminess to it that as the franchise gets MTV'd up, as it kind of loses that steam. But I do think this movie is phenomenal. It has some of the best practical effects of the 80s with Glenn, with Tina. And I mean, you literally have a scary presence as your villain. And I think that's what makes this franchise the most interesting of the bunch, because your antagonist can actually clap back and talk back, as opposed to Michael and Freddy. There's really nothing there. I mean, we're getting back to that silent but deadly with Art the Clown, but still, I think there's still personality to him. But that's another conversation. But that's true. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's been since '99. I've loved it, and anytime I can share with friends that haven't seen it, I always like to get their reaction. So
love that. Yeah. And how about you, Clark? What was your first memory of seeing any of these movies? Did you start at the beginning? Did you start later on? What do you remember as like a kid finding Freddy?
Well, my very first memory of it, I would say I was in kindergarten, and I came into the room and saw like the part where Tina is in the body bag and getting dragged away, and I'm like, what is going on here on this day?
Yep.
But I didn't watch the full movie. I still feel like I was a little too young. I want to say it was probably another couple years, and I got to part 3, and that was my very first one that I could legit remember, and then I kind of just circled through them all.
Yep. Totally. Yeah, because at this time, we had these major horror franchises, and it's always funny to kind of hear everyone's journey through them, because I feel like rarely did we start with the first movie. Like I have a friend that I think started with like Scream 3. I'm like, oh God,
wow.
okay.
I'm so sorry.
What I mean? Right? I'm like, oh, okay. Well, in a way, it's kind of great for that motive. Like, okay, sure, it kind of goes back, but yeah. So my introduction to Freddy, I was young, like you, Clark, like. I was Freddy for Halloween when I was 6 years old, and there are pictures that I'll post. And I remember, this isn't just like, oh yeah, I remember my dad telling me this. Like, I remember the tension going to the neighbors' houses on Halloween night, and walking with like my parents, and the neighbors were like pissed at my parents for having me dress up as Freddy. They're like, you really let your son wear that? Like, it was so awkward. I'm like, what's the big deal? I loved Freddy. So I watched the first one way too young. I must have been 5 or 6, and my dad was a big Freddy fan. I'll probably have him record a little message and put it in this episode. But yeah, I actually think I started, with the first one, and I do remember the third, like watching that pretty early, and then jumping around a little bit. And Dave, you bring up a great point. As the entries went on, there definitely was an MTV-ification, and Freddy got funnier, and the colors were popping, and it was a little bit more like, like badass, whereas the first 2 are, and 3, but like the first 2 for me are actually really quite scary and dark and disturbing, right?
I do think 2, it's probably the scariest Freddy looks in the entire franchise.
Oh, agreed. Yeah, definitely.
Agreed. I know too, and we'll talk about the franchise later on, everybody, because we have thoughts. But I completely agree. 2 is spooky because, as you guys know, but maybe some listeners don't, I guess there was like a dispute with like paying Robert Englund enough to come back. So for some of those shots of Freddy, it's not even him. It's like just a stand-in. So that's why they couldn't, really have him do much in some of those takes, so it actually adds this like eerie quality to it, But speaking of Clark's fan fiction, I might, you guys might remember, and listeners might remember, I've made a few horror fan films. Scream, I know what you did last summer. I might make a Nightmare on Elm Street sequel, and I know there's that very popular fan film Dylan's New Nightmare, which was pretty good. Right. I want to do a meta real world sequel to New Nightmare, which I love. And again, we'll talk about all the sequels later, but I think it could be really interesting to have another real world, modern day, where the characters are talking about the 40th anniversary of Nightmare on Elm Street, and there's talk in the news of a new Freddy. Who's going to play a new Freddy? And there's like demonic Freddy like taking over someone. I don't know. We'll see. But just throwing that out there. We'll be right back.
The kids of Elm Street don't know it yet, but something is coming to get them.
There's something out there, isn't there?
Let me set the scene, boys, and then we're going to nerd out about this original classic horror movie that we love so much. So this is what was going on in November 1984, everybody, 40 years ago. Sadly, I know it's not the nicest time right now for many of us who, voted for someone else, but
yeah,
there was a 1984 election that happened just days before this movie came out, and Reagan was reelected. He was the obviously Republican president of the US. So just letting everyone know it was a very Republican time then as well. On the movie side, this came out the same day as Silent Night, Deadly Night, which I'm sure you guys have seen. What do you think of
Yes.
that classic? Another killer Billy
Now-
Christmas movie like Black Christmas, right?
So I like the first one quite a bit. Diving into that franchise last year was sorry to curse, the fucking adventure of 2023. When you get to Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 5, I don't even like. It's called Friday Night, Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 5, The Toy Maker with Mickey Rooney, and I can't even describe it. There is some wild stuff that goes on in that movie.
I believe it. I'm too scared. I think I finished the first two. I don't know if I ever did 3, 4, 5. I definitely didn't get to 5. Have you watched them, Clark?
Was 4 with Clint Howard?
I think so. Yes. 3 is with Bill Moseley, and I think 4 is Clint Howard.
I think I
so did you make it to Clint Howard? Okay. Mm-hmm. That's so funny. Yeah. Yeah. The first one is pretty fun, but yeah, it's just funny how I feel like how many killers are there named Billy? That's a whole episode in itself is just to talk about all the slashers. Right? Exactly. I know. So yeah, this came out the same day as Silent Night, Deadly Night. Now everybody, A Nightmare on Elm Street, this original film came out limited November 9th, but then expanded November 16th. But it's funny comparing these two slashers. Silent Night, Deadly Night was the one making more money and in way more theaters than A Nightmare on Elm Street. Because even when it expanded wide, it was only in I think I saw 275 theaters. But I just learned this the other day when I was just doing some research. Silent Night, Deadly Night was pulled from theaters only after 2 weeks because parents were complaining so much, even though there was already Black Christmas and I'm sure other Christmas horror movies. I think there was Christmas Evil already out, but parents were complaining so much about Silent Night, Deadly Night and why is Santa carrying an axe and killing people? This is awful. And so it was pulled from theaters. So it could have made more money, but it was pulled and then kind of hidden for a little bit and didn't, really make much money back until later on. So I just
did you see they were making it? Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Are they remaking it?
Yeah, the Terrifier team is remaking it.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay. All right. I don't know if it's gonna be gross. Have you guys seen? I've only seen Terrifier 1 and 2. I know the third one is Christmas. Is it any good? I'm gonna ask you, Dave. Is it any good?
I liked it quite a bit, but I'm into all that schlock. This one actually does have an actual story.
Okay.
Yeah, it kind of does focus a lot on Sienna's PTSD, survivor's guilt. So it actually does have a story that I kind of vibe with. I watched it. My review was out, and Jenny wanted to see it, so I'm like, all right, let's go. So I took her to see it
twice. Wow.
Yeah, okay. And they go ham on kids in this movie, and it's pretty insane what they do.
Okay. Yeah. Have you seen it too, Clark?
I did, and it's I don't know. I appreciate the movies. I like watching the movies because I like the character of Art the Clown.
Yeah.
First one to me didn't have enough story. Second had too much story to me. This one had a decent story. The only parts I didn't really care for is when it was just so open, like the mall scenes with all the kids and stuff like that. Because I'm just I like him when he's more sinister and kind of more contained.
I love the original, when they were indie shorts, the short Terrifier. If you haven't seen it, it's online and it's
All Hallows Eve.
Yes. Yeah. You guys might have seen that. Yeah. I'm pretty sure All Hallows Eve combines all the Art the Clown shorts, but a friend from acting class years ago in New York was in the Terrifier short, which is at the gas station, which I love. So I still think those are the best Art the Clown stories, but I'll check it out for sure. And I agree, Dave, it's always fun having a Christmas slasher because we haven't had a good one in a while. So I hear you. But So that was Silent Night, Deadly Night. Other popular films at this time in November 1984, The Terminator, of course. James Cameron's hit movie had just come out in late October. Places in the Heart and Amadeus, which I still have not seen. I know that's a classic, and I feel like Dave, didn't you just post about Amadeus?
I just did a podcast for the 40th anniversary last week on Amadeus.
Perfect. There you go. Wait, and I have to say, Dave, I'm surprised on your podcast, Real Chronicles, everybody, plug. I'm surprised I'm sure you've talked about Nightmare on Elm Street for a past anniversary, right?
We did it in September this year.
Oh, okay. So I love it.
We do we usually do 2 months of horror. So from September to October, we do like as many anniversaries as possible. There's so many, and we ended up missing a few. So this was one I couldn't miss.
Absolutely. So those were popular movies at this time, and popular songs, just shouting out a couple: Caribbean Queen by Billy Ocean, Wake Me Up Before You Go Go from Wham, and Purple Rain from Prince. Those were the 3 top songs at this time, so I thought that was funny. Now I'm going to throw it over to you guys. It's always fun when I have 2 guests or more that kind of have to, give me a little brief explanation of the movie. So how about this? Let's chop it up, just like Freddie would. Let's have Clark, you start us off. I want to hear in your own words, and it can be brief. What is A Nightmare on Elm Street about? So Clark, you can start us off, and about halfway through, throw it over to Dave, and Dave, you can take us home and finish us out.
Oh crap! I did not come prepared for this.
You know it. You know it.
I know.
For anyone out there who lives under a rock who has no idea what this is, shame on you. You know what to say.
Well, something's just not right in the town of Springwood. The teens are having bad dreams, and they're just very uber realistic. And there's a connection that they start realizing that it's not just one person plagued by it. Numerous people are seeing the same person within their dreams. Mm-hmm. And at some point, these dreams affect their reality. Some of the kids start dying.
Yeah, good. Hold that thought.
There. Okay.
And Dave, so some kids start dying, and take it away.
So as these kids start dying, one of these kids starts trying to research as to who this man that's tormenting their dreams is, and come to find out that this man was murdered by the parents of Springwood. And from there, she needs to, 1, stay awake, 2, convince her nincompoop boyfriend to stay awake too, but he can't do that job very well, and hopefully take him down. But in the process of that, she realizes that she has 2 alcoholic parents, especially her mother, who basically says that she did everything to protect her.
Oh, mother!
Chef,
I love how Nancy always calls her mother.
Ultimately, the boyfriend that does not name Glenn, the boyfriend that does not pay attention to Nancy's warnings, falls asleep and gets sucked and eaten by a bed, which unfortunately I saw the director's cut for this recent rewatch, hoping that scene that people kept talking about, that you actually see him come out of the bed, was in this. No, or still no. I was so bummed about that. But anywho, to make a long story short, Nancy takes him down, and the movie ends with one of the worst, dolls ever in movie history.
Yeah, but it's okay. I still kind of enjoy it. It's all a dream, right?
Wasn't this made though before it was really a time of like pause and rewatchability?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Yeah, and I even noticed on this latest rewatch when Nancy, it's a little bit later on, she jumps off the spiral staircase in the boiler room and then is back into reality and jumping into the rose bushes. Mm-hmm. I noticed this time you can totally see this like safety thing that she jumps into, like behind the rose bush. I'm like, but exactly, Clark. They made it at a different time when we weren't able to just rewind so easily. So I love it all.
You could just see cuts happening.
What did that, Lieutenant?
I don't know.
Tina! What's the coroner got to say? He's in the John puking since he saw it.
When I was reading that, Wes Craven, was seeing all these killers wearing masks and using a knife, usually. And he's like, all right, well, I want my killer to like not just have a normal face. He's got to have some sort of mask. But what if it's a burn and it's scarred? And I think that's just so brilliant. And then to have a glove, like Freddy is so unique. We rarely get bad guys, not even just in a franchise, but bad guys in a horror movie that aren't in a mask, that aren't just wearing a knife or a big machete. Like, what do you guys think of Freddy? Where does he rank in your favorite slashers? Is he up there, Dave?
Probably my favorite franchise is Halloween,
Yeah.
but I think Freddy is number one. I think what stands out from this movie particularly is kind of what you said. This movie doesn't try to rip off Halloween. It tries to be like Freddy's killing people off. Sorry, apologies for the sirens in the background.
Freddy's out there.
But the fact that this movie does try to be its own thing, and I think Freddy itself we talked about the MTVification of the movie of this franchise, but even from the beginning, he always stood out as his own,
absolutely
menacing figure. So I think that's what works so much for this film specifically.
Yeah. What about you, Clark? Is Freddy? I feel like Freddy's like your favorite, but I might be wrong. Who is he? Where does he rank in the slashers for you?
No, he's definitely my favorite. I'm a Wes Craven kind of guy, so he's number one. Scream's number two. I will say, though, I think even people who say, do you prefer Jason, do you prefer Michael, whoever it may be, if you ask them, like, what's the most iconic weapon when it comes to a slasher, they're going to say his glove.
Oh, my God. Yeah. It's such a brutal creation. Like, and it's so funny because, well, I met Wes Craven years ago when I worked at Wendy Williams, and he was nice, but, like, you always hear these stars say, oh, he's the nicest guy. He's so how crazy. Wow, those sirens are really going, Dave. Freddy is coming for you. 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. Yeah, he seems like this gentle giant of a creator, of a writer director, and he came up with some gnarly. And like you were saying, Dave, even before this, in his films, Last House on the Left, and all that, like, and The Hills Have Eyes, and here comes this like pretty sick and twisted vision, and it works so well. It's actually kind of funny how his later on with Scream, which I love so much, it's like tame compared to what he worked on before,
Oh yeah. I agree. The interesting thing about Wes Craven, I don't remember verbatim, but Robert Englund was talking about on the Nightmare on Elm Street, like the 4-hour Never Sleep Again, the 4.5 hour documentary. It's excellent. Yeah. It's really good. How when he first met Wes Craven, he looked completely different than what his expectation was from like Last House on the Left. He had this guy in like a polo and like slacks and this like really posh director that was nothing to the expectation of what his movies perceived of him.
Right. That's so funny. Yeah. And when I met him years ago, he was coming on Wendy randomly this was back in 2010. He was coming to promote My Soul to Take. Not one of the best, right? And I brought my Scream box set. Back then it was just 3 movies, and my Nightmare DVD box set right here that I have. And I brought it for him to sign, but I was just way too chicken. I could tell he like wasn't the most comfortable at that kind of show. And I got permission from my boss, and I got like a Sharpie, but I was like, I feel weird. And I'm kicking myself. I should have had him sign it, but I still love my DVD box set. And this is what I used. Do you guys have this? Do you have it, Dave?
I have like the
late 90s.
No, so I went from that VHS one I mentioned before to just the Blu-ray set, but that set is a much cleaner set. I really like that one. And because of rights issues, we still haven't gotten a 4K set, which is, I don't know if you guys, I'm a big physical media collector. The issues with Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street, and getting actually physical media releases is a nightmare because of the studio rights. It's pretty insane.
Right. I know that is annoying. It's a bummer. But yeah, I'm glad I have this. And it's so funny because I rewatched the film today with the commentary on, and the commentary, guys, it's so funny. I think they recorded it before Wes made Scream. There is no mention whatsoever of Scream. It's that old. And I must have been, I think, in 95, because he says, I just made Vampire in Brooklyn, and it still sounds so good. And they were making the commentary originally for Laserdisc. I'm like, wow, this is dated, but it sounded great, and they have great things to say. And I'll share some cool stuff that they said later on.
From Wes Craven, director of The Hills Have Eyes and Last House on the Left, a new masterpiece in fantasy terror.
Obviously, we've already talked about Wes Craven. We love him so much. What a genius. writer-director. He had written and directed The Hills Have Eyes Part 2 and Swamp Thing right up leading up to this, right before this. I still have never seen Swamp Thing. Have you guys seen it?
I have.
I actually kind of like that Swamp Thing TV show, short-lived, from like 5 years ago. If you guys check that out, that was actually pretty good, but then it got canceled and it was on some streamer that doesn't even exist anymore. I don't even know. Anyway,
DC something,
was it like
universe or something like that? Yeah,
right. Yeah, it doesn't even exist. Yeah, but it actually was pretty good. But yeah, so he made Swamp Thing, The Hills Have Eyes Part 2, leading up to Nightmare. Robert Englund, an amazing actor that I guess, what do you think, guys? It seems like he will never be Freddy again. He's, I think, stated it. He's just too old. He doesn't want to do the makeup, right?
Oh, after seeing the Goldbergs, I'm kind of cool with him retiring from it.
Yeah, I know. I saw that episode too. Yeah.
He goes to this horror convention I go to often called Monster Mania. And,
I love Monster Mania. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Every time he goes, they always ask him the same question. And yeah, he's done. He's like, I'm old. Like there's nothing. Yeah. There's nothing left for me to do there. And with the remake, this is like the franchise that I don't think should ever come back because I don't think there's someone that could replace him. This is the problem with Freddy. This is like Michael and Jason, just put a mask and you're good to go.
Oh yeah, could be anyone.
But with Freddy, Robert Englund is so tied to this that it's if they do this, which I'm sure they will eventually, it's just going to be interesting who they get because I hate the remake.
Jackie.
But I just don't think he was very good. But that's all more credit to Robert Englund.
Totally. Yeah. The remake is rough. I actually was watching it when I was on TV a couple weeks ago for Halloween, and I kind of wanted to keep watching it. I think the beginning is strong. What's hard, and I want to ask you guys now, because I was reading online, you guys probably knew this. Wes Craven originally, I guess, was going to make Freddy a child molester. That was going to be the truth, but then decided not to lean that way and just make him sort of just the ultimate boogeyman for kids, wanting to kill kids, and then like what we were saying, parents, killed him, and now he's out for revenge by killing those parents' kids, right? That's it. But I think what makes the remake so rough is that they lean into the molestation aspect, and that kind of sucks the fun out of this horror movie for me. That's when I'm like, oh God, that's so bleak. Like, I know it sounds weird, but I kind of want like Freddy's kind of fun. So like, that's definitely not fun anymore. Was that a turn off for you guys too when you saw the remake, or were you like already kind of done with it by the time that was like sort of revealed in the movie? What do you think, Clark, with that whole molester angle?
So I'm one of the very few who actually love the remake. I saw it 5 times in theaters.
Wow. 5 times. Wow. Okay. You are a Freddy fan. I love it.
I see the grievances. Trust me. I'm not oblivious to it all. I think the worst part of the movie was basically the remake shots that they did were worse than the original movie because of the CGI was just way too heavy.
Right.
The makeup for Freddy was just terrible, unfortunately. I don't think he did a bad job, the actor. I think he was decent. People complain about Rooney Mara a lot, saying how she wasn't a fan of the movie and kind of shit talked it. But I'm just like, she was still a professional. She still did what they asked of her. So you just didn't like the characterization of Nancy being more emo compared to the fighter who's more spunky, Heather Langenkamp.
Yeah. I think it was a risk because no one else, I believe, in that friend group in the remake was named after an original character. So I think they should have just not even named her Nancy. I think that would have been better for everyone. You know what I mean?
Well, the other girl was, but they just did Chris instead of Tina. Christina.
Oh, yes. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, because Tina is a pretty dated name, right? Dated nickname. Yeah. No, I think it's fine that you like the movie. I didn't hate it, but it's not a remake. I don't put it up there with like the Texas Chainsaw remake, or we've had better, or the Hills Have Eyes remake. We've had better for sure. But my husband loves it too, so you're not alone.
I was just upset that they didn't go with it further because they made the money. It didn't get critically acclaimed, but they made their box office money, right? And they had the actors locked in for 2 more movies, I believe.
Oh, really?
And I was really hoping the next one would have been a Dream Warriors-esque, like her in the asylum, just straight to that. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it is interesting because you're right. It was a hit, but I guess they just heard that feedback and just stopped. Yeah. What about you, Dave, with the remake going the molester route? Was that blasphemy or what do
Yeah,
you
I
think?
mean, so I agree with the, and like I said, it's very weird to say. Like, I like Freddy fun,
Right.
but I also think in 2010, I kind of was just like, oh my god, I'm done with these horror remakes.
Right.
Like, and ironically, I was talking about it with in one of my critics groups today. We were actually talking about horror remakes and how they basically dominated the aughts, and
Oh, yeah.
this was one of the last ones. And for me, like, I felt like I was just watching a pilot for the CW.
Yeah, with that cast, I hear you.
And listen, I'm not saying like Johnny Depp's a beautiful man. Heather Langenkamp, gorgeous. And Amanda Weiss, gorgeous. But I think it was just too beautified in a way for all these characters. And again, I like some of these horror remakes, like you said, Texas Chainsaw. I love Texas Chainsaw, but I also had the sting. I had the sting from the Halloween remake because I hate that movie. And then the Friday, and then the Friday the 13th.
Mark?
No, I said he loathes.
Oh yeah. And then the Friday the 13th one was the one that I thought I was gonna be back in because the first 25 minutes of that Friday the 13th remake are phenomenal. And then the movie just completely just falls off. And then so we got to here and I'm just like, all right, just put a fork in it. Just
right.
And ironically, 3 years later, we get one of the best ones with Evil Dead.
Yeah, I love. Yeah,
that's a great one. Yeah.
What was I going to say about Rooney Mara? Oh yeah, I was watching a clip the other day from a while. This was from a while ago. I just never saw it. Where Robert Englund was interviewed, probably at one of the cons, asking his thoughts on why the Nightmare remake is maybe not the most beloved. And he had a really interesting point that you never really see that group of friends before Freddy takes over. Like from the get-go, Rooney, everyone's pretty moody, right? And it's understandable because like Kellen Lutz dies in the beginning. So right off the bat, but like, whereas in the original Nightmare, even though we start with Tina's awful nightmare, we're still seeing them laugh. We're seeing them, like, I love the radio with Johnny Depp, like talking to his, like, so funny, so goofy. So we're seeing them relatable, goofing off, like we're falling in love with them. And now it's time for each one of them to get, plucked off. So we don't really see any smiles or any fun in the remake, which is tough. And that again goes back to, we kind of need to see a little bit of fun Freddy victims, so it's kind of bleak, but yeah, there are moments I'm okay with. And Connie Britton, how funny. That was like before she was like the Connie Britton. That was like right before she, like, I feel like really took off, But yeah, I wanted to just get your thoughts because the whole child molester thing, I always appreciated in the original movies that like it's sort of hinted at, but it's not really, the subtext. And I personally have always liked it. You decide, like, we're not really sure. Either way, he was the parents thought he was bad, and that's the ultimate issue, But for that movie to kind of make the decision, it sort of just like sucked the air out of the room or something for me.
You saw the deleted scene though, right? Where basically originally too, they were all supposed to have siblings that were killed by Freddy. So Nancy had, like,
I did hear that. Yeah. Right. I don't think so is there a deleted scene like explaining that? Like in what, like photos or something?
No, I think Marge is actually telling it to her when she's down there at the boiler room. And she says, like, you had like a sister or brother, I can't remember which one.
Interesting. Okay. I did remember hearing that. All right. Yeah, that's interesting. Sort of. I don't know. That's a little talky, but I know Mom has some good talky revelations in this original as well, which I do love.
Did they put him away? Oh, the lawyers got fat and the judge got famous, but somebody forgot to sign the search warrant in the right place and Kruger was free just like that. What did you do, Mother?
I want to hear what makes you guys love this movie. What are the visuals, the scenes, the lines, the characters? Like, what to you is a Nightmare on Elm Street? So we can bounce back and forth. Dave, you want to start us off? What's a moment or a scene that is just iconic Nightmare for you?
So I'll stay away from the deaths for now, and I'm sure we'll get to that.
We'll stay,
but there's a specific scene for me is early on, and the cinematography in that scene is phenomenal. Where Nancy's sleeping, and Freddy hovers over her with the claws. Oh, it's such a perfect shot, and I mean, it's still used in the promos for this movie to this day, 40 years later. So that's one of the moments in the beginning of the movie that really sticks with me.
Absolutely, it's beautiful, and I've seen this so many times, but I really realized on this latest rewatch, what really sells it, obviously, is like the light that they have hiding, like, I guess it's like kind of behind her head to really, it's not like that creepy bluish, ghoulish light. Man, it's an awesome scene. And it's so smart that they only really do that effect one other time when he's rising from the bed, which is always scary. That always terrified me. Oh my God, because his like oils are getting on the sheets. It's really spandex, but and ripping it. Yeah, what do you make of that awesome wall scene, Clark? Did that also really like hook you when you saw it?
Oh, for sure. And I think that's what made the 2010 more of a disappointment when you're just like watching in comparison. You're just like, this is crap compared to like how beautifully shot that one was.
Yeah, practical. Absolutely. Yeah, I just remember the remake has like such a watery CGI thing, and it's like, that's not real. Whereas this, it's not a wall, of course, but it's something, and it's that fine layer that he just has to rip through it and grab her, right? And also the whole crucifix thing, how first that cross falls on Nancy's head, poor girl, right? And that's like the warning, and then when she's holding onto it, and then he's there, and then she puts it back up on the wall and knocks, like my young brain, I was like, whoa, how the hell did they make this movie? So I'm glad you're bringing that up, Dave. What an iconic, short, but super impactful moment, right? What about you, Clark? I'll jump over to you.
So what I really love about this movie in general is just like the how it plays with your mind when it goes into dream sequences. Things just don't seem right, basically. So I will say, like, the part where she sees Tina in the body bag in the school, like, there's parts where there's, like, leaves blowing, the guy's talking in a really low mumble, stuff like that. It's just, like, it's all jarring in a sense. And you're just like, why are you following this person? But it's dream. So that's what you do in your dreams. You continue with it,
Yeah, absolutely. I love that sequence, too. And Tina in that bloody body bag whispering, and that's where we get... I've always been so disturbed and confused by that woman in the red and green sweater with pigtails, right? I guess it's another student, right?
Running in the hall.
Running in the halls.
Oh man, it's so spooky, and it's also just kind of jarring because Nancy barely reacts to that moment. She's just kind of like weird, but it's because it's all in a dream. But yeah, where's your pass? And then she turns into Fred. That's the first time we kind of see, if I remember correctly, that's the first time we see someone else with Freddy's voice, how he can kind of take over someone else. Oh, brilliant. And then that leads us to, I'll jump in. One of my favorite moments is when Nancy herself gets a great look at Freddy. Right after that, she now is entering this boiler room. And it's so funny. I just remember today rewatching this. I think this started my love and obsession and interest of running through tiny spaces. Because when I was a kid, I was always like, oh man, I'm going to run through this thing and like make like little like whatever, like cardboard boxes. I think it's because Nancy's like running through the little catwalks and it's real tight. Just a weird, nerdy fun fact about me. But I love when she meets them. Yeah.
Mark, I thought you were going to. No, I thought you were going to say this is what started your fascination with the boiler rooms. I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, no. I mean, that would be pretty weird if like, I just like hang out, I like the heat. I like to be warm by the boiler room. No, not that. But just running through like little tiny things and like getting out. And I don't know. I just love, and I heard that the boiler room location was a condemned jail that they shot. I guess it's all in like the LA area. It's all throughout LA, but I just thought that was really fascinating. Where like Wes says on the commentary, like there was like asbestos and like all sorts of diseases and illnesses that they were just probably breathing in and, pretty scary stuff, but it was a real condemned jail. But no, I just love when she sees Freddy, he emerges, he cuts his chest and those maggots fall out and she has to burn her arm to wake up. That's also when we realize who he is. He says his name, come to Freddy, and then does his little tongue thing, which then we we'll talk about later, that comes back. That's really the first time we are putting a name on this guy, you know? And then she wakes up screaming, and Lynn Shay is her teacher, horror icon in her own right? So I love that whole sequence too.
They're gonna kill me for sure.
Did you do it?
There was somebody else there.
He was locked in a room with a girl who went in alive and came out in a rubber bag.
Tina's death is an all-timer. Just seeing it on VHS in 99 was one thing, but then actually seeing how they made and created that scene is just one of the most impressive scenes in any horror movie of all time. It's just incredible.
Right.
And it kind of just
rotating room, right? It was like a set, and they just have it constantly spinning, right?
And the interesting thing is you kind of see the others, like Nancy and Glenn's perspective, that Rod actually did do this because, you know, at that point they've already talked about the guy in the red and green sweater, but they also still think that it's just a dream, that this is not reality. So they have that moment where you can, when they first open the door and they just see like Tina dead, you can see in their face that like, did our friend actually just do this? So I love that Wes is kind of, with that scene, he's playing with reality versus dream. And now this person's closest friends are now questioning, is this guy a murderer now? So obviously they dive into it more a little later in the movie, but I think that's the first realization for me that this isn't just a normal slasher movie, that there's actually more depth to it. So that scene with that moment kind of always stuck with me as well.
Definitely. I totally agree. There's always like a logical either reason or undertone to things that would make Nancy and anyone feel crazy, you know, for thinking something else, right? And also like how they're having sex earlier, so like, okay, did things get really out of hand? Like, what the hell, you know? So yeah, they set up really good lead up to these deaths. You know, later on when Rod dies, which is another great moment with the blanket that apparently they filmed, they like edited it in reverse. They just kind of reversed the clip. But like, yeah, I mean, he could have committed suicide in his cell because he did kill Tina, you know, like there's all other reasons for it.
Well, I will agree with you guys. And basically it wasn't until Glenn where you're just like, you can't really reason with this one. This one's weird, you know, but the other ones definitely, there was like, I'm sure Glenn probably thought that he did kill himself because he killed her. I mean, you see Rod in the beginning with a little, was it like a garden?
Yes, thing? He's doing the screeching with a, so
has a switchblade. There's plenty of things he could have done, you know?
He's a bad boy.
Yeah. I think they did it in Poltergeist first with the rotating room.
I think you're right. Are we right, Dave? You would know. You were on with me for Poltergeist. I'm pretty sure they did that because doesn't Jo Beth Williams, she's on the ceiling, right?
Yes. You're right.
But they amped this one up to 100 with her floating around. And do you guys like it better the way they did it? Because originally, apparently, you were supposed to get interjections like in Wes Craven's New Nightmare, where you would see him on the roof with her and all this kind of stuff, you know?
I prefer this.
You prefer this? Okay.
Yeah. I love that amazing hospital scene in New Nightmare. That is truly so friggin' scary. But I know this works so well. I mean, I love that gnarly shot of her getting slashed and the blood just pouring out, and we don't see the claws. Like we're seeing that from Rod's perspective, where it's just her. That's so insane.
And I think most importantly, it kind of would break the logic, the dream logic, because Rod's awake, so he's not supposed to be seeing Freddy anyway. Right. So that kind of works that he just sees Tina getting sliced and diced, but he doesn't see who's doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's true. Because she's the first death. This is establishing that only she, because she's sleeping, can actually see Freddy. Anyone who's awake just sees this body going all over the place, going crazy. Yeah, that's a good point. Call me crazy, but I never really noticed this until this latest rewatch, but Tina's blonde hair is so Drew Barrymore in Scream, and there's a moment that I always did catch, but now I'm just realizing the connection. Like there are some really good, obviously, moments and looks and visuals pulled from this for Scream, you know, Glenn coming up through the window, all that stuff. But or before her death, when they're all at the house and Rod, like you said, Clark, surprises with the garden tool, he puts his hand on her mouth. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. That is totally an iconic shot from Wes's later movies. So just funny how when you look back, you're like, oh my God, I'm seeing the inspiration for that, really cool stuff.
Wes does like reusing a lot of his stuff. Because have you ever seen Deadly Blessing? There was maybe before this one.
I haven't. That's the one with Sharon Stone, right? I still have not seen it.
And that's basically where the whole like tub scene with the claw, like they just use a snake instead.
I did hear that. Yeah, that was already used before. So yeah, I do kind of love that he reuses things. And then of course he's reusing some things for like New Nightmare, so keeping it even within the franchise, which is really clever and smart. Yeah, I really do need to see Deadly Blessing. It was a TV movie, am I right?
I wouldn't be surprised. He was doing a whole bunch of those, like with Linda Blair and Summer of Fear.
Yeah, I need to watch those. Those are the Craven movies I haven't seen yet.
Please, God. This is God.
Just before her death, whenever he's in the alleyway with her, I'm not a huge fan of the execution of the Stretch Armstrong arms. I mean, it's still cool, but it was the part whenever he jumps out behind a tree. And it's like all of a sudden he's there and cuts off his finger, and it just shows you kind of like how menacing he actually is. Really enjoyed it.
That scene goes from menacing, like you said, because I really love that scene also, but really funny when he starts running because he looks like he's never done cardio ever in his life. It's so hilarious.
I thought it was a little person at first, to be honest.
I know it's a totally different body, Clark. I always think that as well. I'm like, I think that is either a little person or a very short and stout person who I don't know what the story is there. Maybe they didn't hire Robert yet, but that's not him. You can tell that's not his body. Or if it is, they like patted him or something.
I think it's so they could do the shot that way. So that way he's running and all of a sudden he's jumping out from.
That's true. Yeah, because that's right. That's the same shot where then he's there. So yeah, it has to be like, a stand-in or stunt double or something. Yeah. So it is kind of funny because he's kind of running like with like pants full of something, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
He's
that.
Giving me like Leprechaun, right? He's giving me like little Warwick Davis Leprechaun, like kind of run. But I do love that whole sequence where first of all, I never knew. Today I learned something new, guys, that when Tina post sex with Hot Rod, she goes to the window, she's hearing like, her name, she's hearing noises, there's pebbles, stones at the window. I never knew that the one that hits the window, maybe you guys knew this, you probably did, it's a tooth. I'm shocked we never got a close-up, but it's a tooth that's thrown into her window and it's lodged in there. Did you guys know that?
Yeah.
That one I did not know. That's awesome.
That's like so sick. And I'm like, oh my God, imagine if we got the close up and then Tina like really reacting. So that's amazing. And yeah, just her going out, that whole backyard and alleyway is so super spooky. It's always spooked me out with the lighting and how it's a little backyard. And then now we're all in this wet, strange kind of alley. And it's funny, on my California trip that I was just on a couple weeks ago, we stayed in Venice, California, where that was all shot. And I even thought, I was like, this does feel kind of nightmare because it's like a little like, hippie, a little seedy in sections. And there were like alleys in between like houses. And I'm like, this is kind of creepy. So there you go.
Oh, is that not normal where you guys are from?
No, not at all. No way.
See, in California, because I live in Bakersfield, which is probably just a couple hours north, like alleys everywhere.
Interesting. No, right? What about you, Dave? In Jersey, I mean, alleys are not really a thing.
New York, yeah, but not where I live in New Jersey.
And New York, yeah, but not like New York and Scream 6, where it's like a huge alley. Like that's.
Oh my God! So it's funny. I haven't recorded this podcast, but I'm doing a podcast this week on Eyes Wide Shut, and. Fun. Why is that movie's New York better than literally every horror movie? Because I like Scream 6, but that New York is pretty piss poor. And then
it was all Canada, and then it's very obvious.
And Friday the 13th Part 8, it's like those alleys are not. I mean, I've been to the alleys in New York, walking, trying to shortcut. It's not that at all. So
yeah, it's not funny. Really like that. So even in Bakersfield, you kind of have that setup with like alleys connecting streets and stuff. That's so interesting. No, that's a nightmare thing. Oh my gosh. I love, and I've always been just enthralled by those mushy stairs. What a clever and creepy situation where Nancy's running from Freddy. I always kind of forget he breaks her door window, that little window that mom later is sucked through. And he's like wearing someone's face, which is
Tina's.
so twisted. Is it Tina's, right? Because we just saw her standing there with the bugs coming out of her mouth, which is disgusting. And apparently the real millipede or whatever went loose on set and everyone was like freaking out. That was funny to hear. But yeah, he's wearing Tina's face, which maybe is a nod to Texas Chainsaw. I don't know, but that's pretty messed up, and Freddy doesn't really do that a lot in the franchise. And then yeah, she's running up the stairs, which we know she never should do. Then the amazing, I think it was oatmeal. That is just such a clever and terrifying, like that is really a nightmare. You know, how many dreams have we all had where like we can't run, our foot's stuck or whatever? Like that is genius filmmaking. I just have to shout out, like that visual is so stressful.
Oh yeah, they reused that in what was it called?
New Nightmare.
New Nightmare. They also do like a little nod to it in part 3 when Kristen's beginning dream.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And that whole thing where she's like, he's not real, and then breaking through the mirror, and oh my god, just like iconic chase fighting with the two of them. She is, can we just quickly say, Nancy is such a sick, amazing final girl badass. I love Nancy, and I feel like she doesn't get enough credit. Do you guys agree? This
franchise has 2, because I love Alice.
Oh, I love Alice too.
Mm-hmm. Clark loves Alice. Oh my gosh, Clark, you should send Dave your script because he might really love it. I know Dave is very busy, he might not have time to read it all, but
it's all good.
You know, I won't say a thing, but yeah, Alice is great. I loved Kristen. It's a shame that, but you know, in a kind of fun way, this franchise did shockingly kill some real fan favorites, which other franchises don't, you know. But we get some good girls in this franchise.
Like they kill Kincaid in part 4 because I love Kincaid.
Sense, right?
Right.
It still has like one of the funniest moments in the entire franchise when he like drops the card and he's like, "Take that, motherfucker!" Like, still to this day, it's so so funny. That's one of the things I hated in part 4. I'm like, oh man, you killed the Dream Warriors. Like, just I understand why they did it, but it's like, come on.
It's a bummer. It's like totally like slamming on the brakes, like, oh shit, you know, because 3 is so strong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Why do you guys think 6 is a whole new group? They didn't want to continue with anyone from 5, like Alice, right?
Originally they were supposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was supposed to be Alice and Jacob.
Okay. And
so
it just
John Doe was Jacob, basically. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Weird.
If it wasn't for the remake, that'd be I hate that movie. That's one that I sincerely like. Like you got, like I just finished Dream Child, and like I mentioned, I'm watching the VHSs, so I'm running through this franchise kind of back to back to back to back, and then I get to 5. I'm like, all right, very interesting ideas. I really love the idea that he's killing people through Jacob's dreams. That's really like a really interesting idea. The movie doesn't
so long. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's such an interesting idea. It doesn't fully work, but I do like a lot of it. And then we get to 6 and you're just like, wait, what? Like, where's Alice? Like, why am I here with this toolbox that's like very uninteresting, and when he dies I don't even care? And then we got like Lisa Zane here doing what? Like, and she's like his daughter. What? Like, what's going on here? And then Roseanne and Tom Arnold, like, what are we doing?
That cameo, and then Johnny Depp's cameo.
Yeah,
it's sad that he did that and that he didn't do New Nightmare because Wes, apparently, you guys probably have heard this, Wes was too nervous to ask him to come back for New Nightmare because of course by 94 he was already in What's Eating Gilbert Grape. I mean, 21 Jump Street, he was huge, right? He was already huge. And apparently Johnny Depp did say, like, long after I guess the movie came out and was finished, like, oh, I would have happily come back. That's a bummer because it's like, oh, you came back for that one. But I have to be honest, I haven't seen 6 in decades, so I'm not even gonna try, but I always have kind of liked the strange father-daughter stuff. I thought it was interesting to explore Freddy as a dad. Like, I don't know, that kind of worked for me. But again, everyone, I haven't seen it in years, so
So I actually watch every single Nightmare on Elm Street movie probably 3 times a year, including
Oh my
6
gosh.
and that one.
And that's why you're here. That's why you
Yeah.
had to be one of my guests, of course.
And I will tell you something that helps me watch part 6 because I could appreciate it. I watch it like a spoof movie, like a scary movie almost. If you watch it and don't take it seriously with the others and think that they're just actually making it a comical joke, it's much easier to get through.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I mean, even down like, and that's probably the next time I watch, I'm gonna have to do it that way because even down to Freddy's makeup, he looks like it's so like plasticky. Like it's the worst makeup job, and he's not as. I don't know if you agree, Clark. He's not as funny in 6. No. Like even like when he's playing the Power Glove, he's like, "Oh, I beat my high score." I'm like, "All right, I guess that's funny." Not really.
5 and 6 were really the low in terms of Freddy himself. I actually really love part 5. It's very gothic inspired. I like the story. I like where it was all going. I don't like Freddy in it.
Interesting. Okay.
No one knows where it came from or who it will visit next.
Hey, Rewinders. I'm cutting in, to pause my conversation with Dave and Clark to let another Freddy fan share his thoughts on A Nightmare on Elm Street. And that fan is the person who showed me this movie at a very young age. My dad. Here he is.
It's Christmas, 1984. My wife and I want to go see a movie, A Nightmare on Elm Street. She has to see it because her boyfriend, John Saxon, stars in the film. Everything with John Saxon she had to see. Okay, let's go see. It was great. The screeching of his blades on the pipe. You can't beat it. It was unbelievable. Just a great film. Excellent makeup. A classic in every way with sequels that were just as good. By 1991, my son, Mark J. Parker, has to dress up like Freddy. Johnny Depp, it was his first film. You know, he was a nobody then. I mean, you look at him, you say, that kid, he's a good-looking kid. And look, he became great.
Miss me?
I think Freddy is scariest in 7. I love the way he looks in 7. And not everyone does. But oh man, when he is truly like demonic, like devil Freddy in the real world, he is terrifying. I love that look. And
not just the, I was gonna say, Mark, not just the makeup. I think his entire look. Like I think he's, to me, like Freddy in the form we know, like from the original 1 to 6. The scariest for me is 2, but in the overall franchise, I think it's New Nightmare because it's not just the makeup; it's like the entire look. I love the trench coat. I love that the sweater is a different shade of red and green as opposed to the originals. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Does he have a green fedora in that one?
Yeah, I think it is. It seems like it has a different texture, especially compared to this first one, because it's brown and very like when she holds it up when she's showing it to her mom, like it's like very flimsy. Whereas in New Nightmare, it seems to be more sturdy.
Yeah, it's a pine green fedora, and he's also wearing leather pants in this movie.
The leather pants. That's right. That's like Freddy's here in the mid-90s, bitch. Yeah, you know that's kind of funny, but it works. He's so scary in that movie. Oh my god! And the glove is just looking at it. I always wince. I'm like, God, that looks so.
Because it's his hand, though, isn't it? Though
it's like, it's like in his like bones. I mean, it's like, oh, I love that sequel so much. But we'll hold off sequel talk for a few more minutes. Any other scenes or moments from this original movie you guys wanted to talk about that we haven't mentioned that are just iconic for you that you love?
Oh,
Dave?
Glenn's
death, of course. So Glenn's there lying in his little crop top that then Rose McGowan is wearing and screaming.
Come on, with your crop top.
By the way, crop top aside, if he's the starting quarterback for the football team in Springwood, they must really suck. He does not look like the most athletic quarterback. He looks like a running back, wide receiver. If he's your quarterback, I question their win-loss record. But football aside, he's just hanging in bed, listening to music.
TV on his crotch.
TV on his crotch. Yep, who doesn't do that? I do it every night. And then he just falls asleep and bye-bye. He gets sucked in by the bed. And about 15 seconds later, the blood starts coming out. And it's just, wow. I love that scene so much.
It's amazing. It feels like Wes Craven's response to the blood in the elevator hallway in The Shining. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, it's like, you saw that blood? Well, get ready for this, right? And I always
100%.
forget, and apparently I was listening to the commentary, like I was saying, so the spinning room that they built, it also, I guess, was sort of set in a way where like it had to be balanced. And so there was like apparently like 80 gallons of blood. You guys might know this since you're such fans, of course, that it totally shifted the room. And that's why towards the end of that bloody reveal where his mom is shocked, you can see it's kind of starting to go sideways, which creates this weird twisted effect, right? Where the blood is now not just straight up, it's like turning. So I guess that's because that wasn't intentional. It was supposed to be upright, but it started losing, I guess, equilibrium. So
happy accidents.
Happy accident, Clark. Yeah, it's such a weird, dreamy, twisted thing, and then the blood through the ceiling floor.
The ceiling, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And not a death scene. I wasn't sure if you guys were going to mention it, but I had it in my notes. Just a tub sequence. Again, it's just a wide shot.
Right.
Just a wide shot, but it's an iconic shot as well.
Yeah. And like Clark was saying, that tub scene was taken from, what was it? Deadly Blessing, right? Wes just reused it. But oh my God, the blades, and also just, I mean, her legs are wide open. She's naked. It's just like, when you think of, I go back to college in my horror class, which was the only class I paid attention in, of course. Learning about like 70s horror and 80s and how like the knife and the male killer it's very phallic. It's a sexual assault, that then my brain goes there with these blades coming up only a little bit from her, special parts, and it's just like, oh my God, like that is so hold your breath.
Nancy, there's something wrong with you. You're imagining things.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
I do want to mention something that kind of makes me laugh. It's the slow running, because they haven't perfected it yet by this point, so they're kind of like, yeah.
Right.
But in comparison to what we were talking about earlier, how we said like in the remake that it was no fun, they still have fun moments even after some of the deaths. Because I love the part whenever she wakes up from her dream and she's like, I tell you to do one thing and you fall asleep. Basically just getting on to me.
And she calls Glenn, like, does she say like, you shit or something like that? Like she is just so pissed. I told you to do one thing, right? Yeah, she is so fiery. I love Nancy. Heather Langenkamp. I wish we got to see her in movies like Cursed, which was obviously very cursed, but I know she was supposed to be in that. Like, it would have been really fun to see her in more horror movies that came out later that were such hits, with Craven and everyone.
I guess I love the part where she's like, God, I look like I'm 20 years old, and she legit was 20 years old.
Yeah, I love that. And also, Clark, we got to talk about when they're on that iconic bridge and they're having this kind of cute moment, and one of you, I have to let one of you say the line. Clark, do you want to say her line that she says to Glenn?
I'm into survival.
I'm into survival. Like, I love her. Well, like I need that on a t-shirt. Clark, I need you to design. Well, oh wait, fill us in real quick. Oh, that's right. I was about to say, I need you to design Nancy and Freddie, and I want I'm into survival on it. But what was going on? You want to tell us real quick what happened with your nightmare designs? Did New Line like shut you down or something?
Oh yeah, I mean Warner Brothers is like notorious for like looking for keywords and just finding your side and just basically axing everything.
Terrible.
Yeah. So if you want it, I could do it, but you got to get it like right away, because within like a week it's going to be gone.
Wow, that is such a bummer, because like I was saying earlier, and everyone's got to go to Clark's Insta, your designs for this franchise I loved. So Dave, to paint a picture, Clark picked like a lead character kind of in a pose or holding something, right, Clark?
Yeah,
and then
basically.
with Freddie, and sort of like kind of hitting each like kind of iconic prop or moment. Like, I remember like going back to his daughter in 6, like the 3D glasses, or what else, Clark? Yeah, the power glove. And like with 3, Freddie is the Freddie worm. Like you did such an awesome job hitting those iconic Freddies and his leading lady or guy for 2. Don't tell Warner Brothers, anyone, please.
Oh, I feel like $1 million. They say you've bottomed out when you can't remember the night before.
One other thing I just want to shout out that I really do love. I don't think she's a great actress, and I think it's pretty interesting. And on the commentary, I don't want to say they were making fun of her, but they did say, like, I feel like she kind of was doing her own thing. Her hair is constantly changing. But Ronnie Blakely, who plays
yes,
mom, let's talk about her for a second. I do absolutely love, and this is just why this movie just works in every way. I love the Nancy mom scenes. I teach acting classes, and just last night I assigned someone the scene where it's Nancy and mom in the kitchen, where she says "screw sleep," big fight in the kitchen, and I love how Nancy says "that's enough," the role reversal. But I just love their fights. I remember first seeing this and chills down my spine when mom pulls out the glove. Not only does she know Fred Krueger and what happened to him, but she has his glove. No wonder Nancy's being tormented. Like, all that stuff. Holy shit. That is so good. Now, maybe a different actress in some of those scenes maybe could have been better, but I mean, she's pretty good at being drunk, I think. I hate when she says locked. Like, don't you just want to, oh my God, I am so like Nancy, where I just want to scream, mother, and the bars on the windows. But what do you guys think of mom? Dave, I'll start with you. What do you think of her in this movie and everything she's giving?
At least I'll say this: at least there are parents in this franchise as opposed to Halloween and Friday the 13th, because there's no parents ever in any of these movies, except like in Halloween, where Laurie's dad's like, "Make sure you drop off the keys at the Myers house."
One line, yeah,
I come to find out that she was Oscar nominated for Nashville.
She was in Nashville. Yeah, I know.
So it's like, what happened here?
Yeah, and Wes, I mean, we've seen many Wes movies, and he directs people well. I mean, you get good performances. So, yeah, it's like, was she really drinking? Like, what was going on?
And it's funny, like, and I agree with you on that, because I think John Saxon's good in this. So it's not a directing problem at all. I just think it's a bad performance problem, and more than anything.
Apparently, she always was having issues with her makeup. Like, she never felt comfortable with her makeup. So that's why also, like, she's kind of draggy. She's a little painted here and there. It's like, why? So I don't know. I don't know what was going on, but she's not super consistent, which honestly works well because she's a drunk. So it's fine. But yeah, there are just moments where I'm like, why are you like falling asleep in the middle of this line? And I feel like you would have just delivered this differently. What do you make of her, Clark? Do you love what she's giving, or could it have been better?
I mean, it definitely could have been better, but I just try to view it as like, she's a woman, she's drinking, she's in denial. First of all, she sees what's going on with her daughter. She knows what's going on with her daughter, but she doesn't want to come to terms with what she did in the past. She doesn't want to open this can of worms. So she's doing everything in her power to be like, no, it has to be something else, And I think it's making her a little bit batty. I think she's going a little crazy.
Yeah. And her death, wow, that is, it's a little 80s goofy with the whole like skeleton in the bed thing, but I love it. And it's so, again, it's like a little sexual, with burning Freddy on top of her. And I think it's so interesting how he comes for the mom. I think that makes a lot of sense for him. Mom was one of the people who killed him. She has his gloves, so it sort of feels like she was the ringleader, maybe, or something, right?
I got that too.
I always kind of forget about that it's like, oh yeah, it's not just Nancy. He wants to come for mom. Like, whoa, that's heavy and twisted there. And how also it's kind of sad because Nancy doesn't even get a chance to like, hold her dead mom. Mom like disappears. Nancy goes back on the bed and it's firm and like, mom's gone, So I just love that twisted ending before we get the, as Wes calls it in the commentary, the feminine hygiene commercial aesthetic in the end dream sequence with the all in white and then the convertible and everything. But yeah, just a cool ending. I really like the mom character a lot. I just think she's a really interesting character. I think she's a little bit more interesting than dad. Dad's kind of, typical cop, tough, not believing his daughter, but mom's got some real secrets and it's cool to watch.
the internet never lies. So everything I'm going to tell you is obviously true.
Right.
So Heather Langenkamp beat 200 actresses for the role of
Yeah.
Nancy, and some of the some of the actresses that she beat out were Jennifer Grey, Courtney Cox, Tracy Gold, Claudia Wells, and this little known actress Demi Moore.
Wow. I believe it. They all were working around this time or about to. Yeah. That's interesting.
This I think you guys may have known. So New Line Cinema was saved from bankruptcy from this movie. So they basically nicknamed New Line the house that Freddie built because of this movie.
And by the way, I love the New Line logo at the start, how it's like red and very 80s, right? Because of course it became the iconic, other thing. But absolutely, yeah, that's fun that this movie saved it.
And this also continues the interesting trend that has not stopped of having, like, I'm bringing up Johnny Depp here, someone that was not known that became a super duper uber star. Because I mean, we go back from Halloween and Friday the 13th. It just continues to happen with horror. I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio in Critters 3, people like Matthew McConaughey and Renee. Renee in Texas Chainsaw, which is a riot of a movie.
That was the first. That was the first Chainsaw I saw.
Aniston.
Jennifer in Leprechaun, iconic. I know. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it's just interesting that everyone that this genre that's people seem to always throw to the side is the starting point for some of the biggest careers in the last like 40, 50 years. It's just very interesting.
She's the only one who can stop it. If she fails,
I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy.
no one will survive.
The inspiration for Freddy came from several sources. So Fred Krueger was a schoolmate of Wes Craven, who he shared a paper route with, and who had bullied him for several years. In Last House on the Left, Craven also used this experience as inspiration, calling the village Krug. Freddie Burns came from a man with severe burn scars from by whom Craven had once been terrified as a child, and Freddie's attire was inspired by an alcoholic hobo that Craven saw staring at him walk through his window one day when he was 10 years old. So
that last story I've always pictured, like looking out your window and then seeing this creepy guy looking up at you, or whatever level, But I love that. That's so interesting. Can you guys imagine turning your bully's name into this iconic villain that you'll hear for the rest of your life? Like, hopefully he got over, any issues with the real Fred Krueger, because, he couldn't go too far without hearing that name, That's pretty cool. Also, guys, did you know, I had heard about this and then forgot about it, but they talk about it on the commentary. The idea of the story, so not so much Freddy, but the story came from, apparently it was 3 articles throughout a year that were posted in the LA Times about Asian teens immigrating with their parents to the US.
Yes.
And did you hear about this? They had a series of nightmares. This group all were having nightmares, and the parents, of course, would tell them, relax, get more sleep, you're just stressed with the move. And they each died in their sleep. And one teen did stay awake for almost a week to stay alive because he was so freaked out by his dreams. But he finally, crashed and fell asleep, and he did die. And there was even a coffee pot found in one of their rooms, which Nancy has, the coffee pot. So I thought that was so spooky. They had all called it at the time in the 70s Asian death syndrome. Like, it was actually talked about, but they never really delved into it too much further. And luckily, I guess it didn't last too long to too many people. But how crazy. Had you guys heard of that story?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. You too, Clark? Yeah, of course. I'm preaching to the choir. You're like, yeah, Asian death syndrome.
I know if you read the original script, it does say it's set in California, and it's not mentioned as Ohio until part 6.
That's so interesting. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I always associate Springwood, Ohio with part 6.
Me too.
Right? I'm always like, that's Ohio. This movie, maybe because I've been to the iconic house, which you guys probably saw that viral video of the guy who owns now being a dick, right? But I've gone on the Hollywood tour years ago. Like, it's so Californian to me. even the bridge, like, so yeah.
Do they have earthquakes in Ohio? Because they do mention, she's like, I think there's going to be an earthquake. Something strange always happens.
Right. They bring it up here. And then, of course, in New Nightmare, earthquakes are huge because that's actually set in LA. But because Springwood, I get, is supposed to be like kind of anywhere USA. But yeah, it is funny how not until later it's like, oh yeah, it's Ohio. I have some fun facts if you guys want to hear, just a couple. The scraping claw sound, the screech that we hear throughout all of these movies, but especially in this original, Wes Craven said it was a steak knife being slid on the underside of a metal folding chair. That was what finally worked well to really make everyone creeped out by that. You guys probably know black plastic was covering the pool, the tank that they were in for when Nancy is pulled deeper into the tub. So it was like black plastic that they cut the hole out of, but apparently it like would only last for so long and then it would fall and kind of freak everyone out and like get on them. So I'm sure that was a stressful shoot. The cemetery scene where they are at I think, is it Rod's funeral or is it Tina's? One of their funerals. It's the same. Rod. It's Rod. Yes, thank you, Clark. Because that's right before another moment I love where the cameras really zoom in when Nancy's really describing Fred Krueger to her parents, and they both know before she goes to the sleep clinic. That cemetery they filmed at again for New Nightmare. That's the same one when it's Heather's husband at his funeral. I thought that was fun. And then also, I thought this was so interesting, going back to the iconic weapon, the glove. A sickle was considered to be Freddy's weapon until the third or fourth draft of the script. So apparently the glove was not an original thought. That came a little later after some rewrites. So there you go. Freddy almost had a sickle. So
I think his sweater was supposed to be red and yellow too, originally.
Oh, I do remember hearing that. Yeah, that's interesting. Brighter. More like clowny or something. I like the sweater because it's red and green, but it's barely green because we always associate Christmas, but it's,
Do you believe in the boogeyman?
No.
I want to just hear your rankings, my Freddy pros. So Clark, since you watch these movies so many times, which I love, how would you rank them? And we can include Freddy versus Jason and the remake if you want. That's optional if you want to include those.
Speaking of Freddy versus Jason, I want to say really fast, love the devil look in that one when he's coming up from the water.
Yeah, same.
Oh, yeah. I love Freddy in that movie. He's great.
My ranking is going to be kind of controversial, but I like part 3, part 4, part 5, part 1,
Whoa.
And then I go. I know, right? And then I go part 7, which is the New Nightmare. Then I go Freddy versus Jason, and then I go part 2, part 6. I love every single one of them, though. Don't get me wrong. I love every one of them, but it's just rewatchability. And I think I like 3, 4, and 5 a lot because of the continuation of the story.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. That's like a good chunk right there. I hear you. Wow, that is a little controversial, Clark. Okay, so the original is not your fave. Wow. All right. What about you, Dave? How would you rank them?
I'm going to be very basic.
Okay. You're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
1, 3, 7.
Well, correct. 1, 3, 7. I've seen a lot of. I guess I'm just getting old. A lot of Gen Zers really lean more on 3 now, and I get it. I love 3 so much. It's kind of like ironically, it's like a horror version of the Goonies. It's like the Goonies meets Nightmare on Elm Street, essentially, with like the. But yeah, for me, it's 1, 3, 7, 2.
I figured.
4.
Yep.
Freddy versus Jason. 5, and then like the depths of hell, and then 6, and a little bit lower than that is the remake. So really gotta go down there.
Yeah, that's exactly where I would have put you when you said basic, just because that's popular.
That is the basic. Yeah, that's absolutely That's why I was like, I love that yours is so like controversial because I have the most basic list, so I love that it is difference of opinion. That's why when I tell people Halloween 3 is my second favorite Halloween movie,
I love. Halloween 3 is great, but also I feel like Halloween 2 is kind of underrated. Like
it is.
I like it better than the first.
Oh, you like it better than the first. You know, I have a friend that said the same thing. I mean, the first is great, but Halloween 2, I think, is an awesome sequel. That was what I was watching. Going back to what you were watching on Halloween, Dave, how you watch 1 and 2. I think 2 is so good. It's great to have more of a death count, but the beginning is scary. Again, going back to these kind of alleys between houses, he's bouncing around, killing people, you know, and then to the hospital. So good.
Fun fact, Halloween 2 is the first horror movie I ever saw.
Oh, okay. I love that. So you saw 2 before 1. Oh my God.
Yep. It was 1990. I still remember this. It was 1994. I was coming home from trick or treating. It was a Friday night. Halloween fell on a Friday night that year. Halloween was playing. It was playing on USA when they used to play on USA on Halloween. Yeah. I got home to the end of Halloween, and I was like, and it ends, and he's like, he disappears and cuts the credit, and Halloween 2 played over Halloween 2 started over the credits of Halloween 1. I'm like, it's Friday, I'm gonna stay up.
Since you guys love Halloween 2 like me, Leo Rossi, who's the guy with the woman who gets it in the hot tub. I was in a movie with him years ago. I had like a speaking role with him, and I knew him from Halloween 2, and he was so cool. It was this really bad mafia movie that was shot in Philly, but I was like, oh my God. So what was it like with Michael Myers? And he was really cool.
You're like, anyway, I saw your butt.
I know. What was it like kissing that girl in the hot tub? But yeah, so he was cool. That's a little side note. But okay, my ranking for the Nightmare movies, and I shouldn't even be doing this because I haven't watched them all recently, but my order, I'm not going to include the remake and Freddy vs. Jason just because those two are so like side for me. Yeah, they're just kind of not part of it. 1, of course, 7. I love 7 so damn much. Like seeing that when it first came out, my mind was blown. This meta, oh my God, brilliant. And bringing the stars back as themselves, brilliant. So 1, 7, 3, 2. Then probably 4, 5, 6, I think, just going in that order. So that might be a little kind of basic as well, but just swapping 7 for higher up because I just love that sequel so much. Anyone who hates New Nightmare, you are not my friend. Sorry, I don't like.
And anyone that hates New Nightmare and then comes back, be like, but I love Scream. I'm like, this is the blueprint for Scream. Like, what are we doing?
Mm-hmm, exactly.
You guys are all about the Heather trilogy, then.
Oh yeah,
yes,
Heather,
yes,
yeah.
I kind of really like. I'm sorry, I know we're running long, but I kind of really would have loved other horror franchises kind of follow suit with their reimagining. Like I would actually have loved this new Halloween trilogy, which that's another podcast conversation. Mm-hmm. But would have loved the idea of like this trilogy having Jamie Lee Curtis, not Laurie Strode, and just having to deal with a real life stalker who is trying to bring Michael Myers to life and killing people around her like real life.
Oh, that's interesting.
That would have go ahead. Sorry.
No, speaking of, have you guys heard the possibility, like there's like speculation that part 7 of Scream might make 5 and 6 a movie?
Interesting. Like make it like a stab movie?
Yeah.
But how would that work? Because Gail and Sid and Dewey were in it for bits, you know what I mean?
Just like Cotton wasn't supposed to be in part 3.
Interesting. Maybe. I know that's tough because I love that franchise so much, but now with the shift, I don't know. And
they should just get Melissa back, man. Just get Melissa back.
Well, I did hear, and you guys might have heard, like, I feel like not that long ago, there were rumors that like Nev and Melissa were talking, and like someone was trying to bring Melissa back, and Courtney and Melissa were like, seemed really tight making 5 and 6. So
you mentioned Wes used to bring his movies into his, sprinkle stuff from his movies all over the place. This could be it. Like Kevin Williamson could bring everything back, and it could have the parents of all the victims, like in Nightmare on Elm Street, kill off Sidney, and that creates a new Freddy Krueger, which is Sidney Prescott.
She's gonna be like Mrs. Candyman. She's deadly. She's sweet for your teeth.
If I can't, then you can all relax because it's just a case of me being nuts.
Yeah, well, I can save you the trouble. You're nutty as a fruitcake. I love you anyway.
One thing I'll say that I realized we missed, just a quick thing. I'm Your Boyfriend Now, tongue phone.
Oh, yeah.
What a moment. Oh my God. Insane. So gross. But any other last Freddy thoughts before we sign off and say goodnight, guys? Anything you want to say that you didn't get to say yet?
This is the most consistently good horror franchise. This is when we look
the
at
most creative.
Yes. It's one that in the era of CG, if done right, could really blend the use of practical and CG beautifully if done right with the proper director. Like, I would love Jordan Peele to get his hands on this franchise. And I think there could be something there.
They all feel different from each other. So not one movie is alike to the next one. So it's going to be more entertaining to watch because it's not going to feel like Friday the 13th where you're watching the same movie six times, basically.
Totally. I agree. That's really great. Yeah, you're right. It's consistent, but it feels like a separate chapter and maybe that's because the leads change and the dynamics change a bit, but that's a really good point. It does feel very different. And speaking of chapters, I just want a quick shout out. Did you guys, since you're major Freddy fans, did you ever get the book series that came out after New Nightmare? I wish I had them. I loved them. I'm going to post a picture, but they had the most colorful covers, but I think they were called, oh God, not Freddy's Nightmares, because that was the TV show spinoff. But does this ring a bell at all? Did you ever get these paperback Freddy books? No,
this I've not. I do own the comics. Like, I do own some of the comics that were released, but the books I do not. I have to look into them.
They were fun. They were like different scary stories, very like Christopher Pike-esque, but it was New Nightmare Freddy with the different makeup and the cloak. Oh man, they were awesome. They were so spooky. And now if you want to buy them online, you got to get them on eBay for like hundreds of dollars because they're out of print. So we love you, Freddy, and we love you, Wes Craven, for making a great franchise, right guys? Great movie.
Absolutely.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
And that's it. We survived. This episode, at least. And one last fun fact for you all that I didn't know until the other day. Wes Craven brought his buddy Sean S. Cunningham, who directed and produced Friday the 13th, to shoot some footage for Nightmare on one of 5 simultaneous units during filming. Horror friends, how sweet. Thank you, everybody, for listening to or watching Release Date Rewind, and thank you to my awesome guests, such pros, Clark Felix and David Gonzalez. Make sure you follow them on social to see the great things they're doing. Clark is at ClarkMakesArt87, so check out his Freddy designs and more. And Dave is at The Cinematic Reel, so read his reviews and give his podcast, The Real Chronicles, a listen as well. Also, everybody, Clark made another Horror Hotties calendar this fall. Last year was a big success. He's doing a new one, and this time it's the Women of Scream. So check to see if there are any left before they sell out. There might be 1 or 2 left, but no promises. Thanks also to my dad, Mark J. Parker the First, for your cameo in this episode, and of course for introducing me to the one and only Freddy. Follow me on Instagram at Release Date Rewind. Thanks Straw Hat Media, Kyle Motzinger, Greg Clements, and Portland Media Center. And on the next episode, everyone, we have something to warm you up. A Brad Pitt double feature. Bye, everybody, and whatever you do,
don't fall asleep.